Okay, pause what you're doing, because history is not what you think. Schools skip the weird, the wild, the totally WTF parts. Today, we're diving into real historical facts so crazy they sound like fan fiction. We're talking about emperors who are still kids, wars shorter than your lunch break, and buildings that can literally grow taller. Buckle up, because we're about to expose the truth that your history books were too afraid to tell you. Alright, let's talk about the Trojan War. More specifically, the Trojan horse. You know the story, Greeks hiding inside a giant wooden horse, wheeled into Troy as a gift, then bam, city's toast. A lot of historians are starting to think that maybe, just maybe, there wasn't actually a giant wooden horse involved. We don't have any archaeological evidence to support the existence of the horse. Some historians believe the Trojan horse was actually a metaphor. Like maybe it was an earthquake that destroyed the city, and the Greeks just took credit for it. Another theory is that the Trojan horse was actually a ship. The Greeks did have a ship called the Hippos, which means horse in Greek. So did the most famous sneak attack in history actually involve a giant wooden horse? The jury's still out. Let's talk Vikings, those fierce Scandinavian warriors who raided and traded their way across Europe. When you picture a Viking, what do you see? Probably a big burly dude with a horned helmet, right? Well, I hate to break it to you, but that image? Totally inaccurate. Vikings did not wear horned helmets into battle. The image we have of them comes from 19th century operas, specifically Wagner's Der Ring des Nibelungen. In reality, Vikings were all about practicality. They wore simple iron helmets, sometimes with chainmail for added protection. They needed to be able to see clearly and move quickly in battle, and a big, clunky horned helmet would have just slowed them down. So next time you see a Viking costume with those iconic horns, remember, it's a cool look, but it's about as historically accurate as a T-Rex wearing a monocle. Vikings were tough, but they weren't fashion disasters. The Eiffel Tower, symbol of romance, engineering marvel, and surprisingly flexible? That's right, folks. The Eiffel Tower can actually grow taller in the summer heat. The Eiffel Tower is made of iron, and like most metals, iron expands when it's hot. So on a scorching summer day in Paris, the tower can grow by over 6 inches. Gustave Eiffel, the mastermind behind the tower, designed it with expansion joints, which allow the iron to expand and contract without putting any stress on the overall structure. So, the Eiffel Tower isn't just a pretty face, it's a testament to both human ingenuity and the laws of physics. Chapter 4. George Washington's Teeth. A bite of a dark truth. Ah, George Washington, the first president of the United States, the father of our country, and the owner of a set of dentures made from some very unexpected materials. While Washington did suffer from dental problems throughout his life, his dentures weren't made of wood. They were actually crafted from a rather unsettling combination of materials: ivory, gold, and human teeth. Yeah, you heard that right, human teeth. Records indicate that Washington purchased teeth from enslaved Africans. It's a grim reminder of the brutality of slavery, and the lengths to which wealthy individuals would go to maintain appearances. So the next time you see a portrait of George Washington with his stoic expression, remember that there's more to the story than meets the eye. His teeth, far from being a simple historical anecdote, serve as a stark reminder of the complexities and injustices of the past. History isn't always as clean-cut as we think. Chapter 5. The Great Fire of London. More smoke than fire? The Great Fire of London in 1666. It's the stuff of legends, right? A city consumed by flames, chaos reigning in the streets. And while the fire was undoubtedly destructive, the death toll tells a very different story. For a disaster of this magnitude, the number of confirmed deaths is shockingly low. How low, you ask? Try 6. Yes, you heard that right. 6 confirmed deaths in a fire that engulfed London. First, most of the buildings in London at the time were made of wood, which burns quickly. That meant the fire spread rapidly, but also burned itself out relatively fast. Second, the stone structures like St. Paul's Cathedral fared surprisingly well. People were able to evacuate relatively quickly, thanks in part to the city's layout and the fact that it was a Sunday, so many people were already awake and about. So, while the Great Fire of London was undoubtedly a tragedy, it's also a story of resilience and, dare I say, a bit of historical luck. Chapter 6. King Tut, the boy king who ruled from the grave. Let's talk about ancient Egypt and one of its most famous pharaohs, Tutankhamun, better known as King Tut. This guy was basically the Justin Bieber of ancient Egypt, young, famous, and rocking some seriously stylish headwear. But unlike the Biebs, King Tut's claim to fame wasn't catchy tunes or questionable tattoos, it was his tomb. King Tut took the throne at the ripe old age of 9, ruled for about 10 years, and then kicked the bucket at the age of 19. His tomb, discovered in 1922, was practically untouched by grave robbers, which is practically unheard of when it comes to ancient Egyptian royalty. Inside, archaeologists found a treasure trove of artifacts, including Tut's iconic golden death mask. The discovery of Tut's tomb sparked a global fascination with ancient Egypt, and the boy king became an instant celebrity, proving that even in death, he was still pharaoh. So, while King Tut might not have accomplished much during his short reign, he more than made up for it in the afterlife. Chapter 7. The 38-Minute War. History's fastest conflict. Ever feel like you blinked and missed something? Well, that's basically what happened in 1896 when Zanzibar and Britain had a bit of a disagreement. This disagreement, my friends, escalated into what is officially recognized as the shortest war in recorded history, clocking in at a whopping 38 minutes. Zanzibar's new sultan, Khalid bin Bargash, refused to step down when Britain, who had their own interests in the region, told him to. Big mistake, the British had this whole gunboat diplomacy thing going on, which basically meant, do what we say or we'll blow you up with our really big boats. And blow up they did. At precisely 9 a.m. on August 27, 1896, the British warships opened fire on the Zanzibari Royal Palace and harbor defenses. By 9:38 a.m. it was all over. The Sultan fled and the British had a new puppet ruler in place. The Anglo-Zanzibar War is a stark reminder that sometimes history can be just as absurd as it is tragic. Chapter 8. The Library of Alexandria. Death by 1,000 Cuts. The Library of Alexandria. It's held up as this beacon of knowledge in the ancient world, home to countless scrolls and a testament to human intellect. And then, tragedy strikes. The library burns down, taking with it an irreplaceable collection of wisdom and knowledge. But it's also not entirely accurate. The Library of Alexandria didn't just go up in smoke in one dramatic event. Its destruction was a much slower, more insidious process, a death by 1,000 cuts, so to speak. It was damaged and looted multiple times throughout its history, each event chipping away at its vast collection. One of the earliest blows came from Julius Caesar himself. During his escapades in Egypt, a fire broke out in the harbor, and, well, let's just say, things got a little out of hand. The library faced neglect from later Roman emperors, religious turmoil, and even a good old-fashioned riot or two. So while the image of a single, catastrophic fire makes for a more dramatic narrative, the truth is far more nuanced. Chapter 9. Napoleon, the Little Emperor, who wasn't so little, Napoleon Bonaparte. The name conjures up images of a short, stocky figure with a big hat and an even bigger ego. Turns out Napoleon wasn't actually that short, at least not by the standards of his time. The myth of Napoleon's height stems from a bit of a measuring mishap. The French used a different unit of measurement back then, and when converted to modern units, Napoleon's height comes out to be around 5'6" or 5'7". Some historians believe it was a deliberate smear campaign by the British, who weren't exactly fans of the little emperor who was conquering most of Europe. Propaganda, my friends, it's a powerful tool. But the truth is, Napoleon's height or lack thereof had nothing to do with his military genius or his ambition. Chapter 10. Prohibition. When the US government poisoned alcohol, the 1920s in America, the Jazz Age, flappers, and the government poisoning its own citizens. Yeah, you read that right. During Prohibition, that noble experiment in social engineering, the US government decided to get tough on illegal alcohol by making it, shall we say, a bit more potent. The government knew that people were still going to drink, even if it was against the law. So, they decided to take matters into their own hands by adding poison to industrial alcohol, which was often stolen and repurposed for bootleg liquor. The logic was, if we can't stop them from drinking, we'll make sure it's the last thing they do. The results were predictably disastrous. Thousands of people died from drinking poisoned alcohol, and countless others suffered from blindness, paralysis, and other debilitating conditions. The government's actions during Prohibition weren't just misguided, they were downright deadly. It's a stark reminder that even with the best of intentions, Prohibition can have unintended consequences. History is insane, and we're just scratching the surface. Forget dry textbooks and boring lectures. The real stuff? It's full of chaos, comedy, and controversy. Which fact shocked you most? Let me know in the comments, and if you want a part 2 with even crazier facts, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Stay weird, stay curious, and never trust a history test again.